I was really, really like distraught when I saw the video of the man who was asking people that if they want to vote for a certain candidate, they should thumbprint each
Eight
and every.
times.
And why would
That
you do
that was
that?
so ridiculous, honestly. That if the person doesn't want to vote for your candidate and wants to vote for a candidate who has a certain number at the bottom, you're supposed to vote all through till you get to that person.
But what if right now tables turn? Like I know it's not possible, but something happens and your candidate also moves there, and they really want your candidate.
Trust me, based on selfish reasons, that person will backtrack and say that find our candidate whose number is number this and vote there.
But the good news is that we'll get rid of disinformation and misinformation soon. Because
Yeah,
we
soon.
will. We have to. We really, really have to.
It's a gradual process, and I believe that we are making headway. I mean, that is one of the reasons we are here, isn't it?
Restoring power back to the community.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, fortifying community truth. Yeah, so we're all for it.
Absolutely.
We're all for it, yeah. Anyway, welcome back to the factory where we put power into your hands. Because if you watch the factory, if you run through various exercises with us, you will not, I am very sure that you will not fall
Victim.
to such things.
Exactly.
Yeah, you wouldn't go all the way thumbprinting every candidate so you get. Hey, imagine if the person likes the
Look.
last person on the ballot sheet.
The person is going to vote like 13 times because we have 13 candidates.
Yes. Oh.
Which is actually going to result in a spoiled ballots. And that is one thing about these elections. Because the stakes are high, people will pull every string available just to please themselves and their parties, and it's going to be really dangerous because even here, you know that we have the presence online, so we've seen people try to use our artworks for mischievous purposes. We've seen all of that.
That's not fair.
Exactly.
That's not fair.
But it's expected because, as I said, the stakes for these elections are pretty high. So now there are no holds bars for these party foot soldiers and whatnot. Unfortunately, that's just a reality.
It's like next to COVID-19, we have disinformation as the next pandemic.
The next big pandemic.
Yeah, like disinfodemic. Like that's what we are currently dealing with because.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we can't even blame artificial intelligence because they don't operate by themselves.
Humans are behind artificial
Certainly.
intelligence, and it's not even funny. But well, sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's funny because what even struck you
to do that, right? It's funny, but it's quite serious because we would have to visit the subjects of disinformation in subsequent episodes.
But we can do that today too.
Absolutely, nothing stops us from doing that.
This vlog is brought to you by kind courtesy of Witness and powered by the EIB network.
So let's cross over to Abuja, Nigeria, and speak to Programs Manager for Africa at Witness, Nkem Agunwa. Thank you for joining us, Nkem.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing to be here.
Right, Nkem, what do we look out for when examining information in elections?
I think the first step is to understand that election season is such an important part of every democracy. It is the time when we get to exercise our franchise and decide on the people we want to hold political power and those who would lead us, often in most countries for the next 4 or 5 years. So it is an important time. And it's also a time where the information ecosystem is overwhelming, to say the least. There are a number of actors who are scrambling to get your attention, scrambling to influence your decision. And so the most important thing is to be critical, to assume a critical mind, and to engage with pieces of information in ways that ensures that you do your due diligence, you ask the right questions. You also understand that you have a responsibility as well as also an information source yourself, because all of us have become publishers of news with social media. So we all have a responsibility to ensure that we double check every content that we share online, knowing that it could travel far beyond our sphere of influence.
Right. And what are the forms of the manipulation in the media? And most importantly, how do we even detect these?
I think it's important to start with information, misinformation and disinformation. What does that mean? So misinformation, putting it simply, is misleading, inaccurate information with regardless of the intention to cause harm. So this is where people send information online, believing it to be true, but unfortunately they are not. And regardless of that intention, you are spreading an information that is inaccurate or misleading. While disinformation, on the other hand, is the deliberate spread of false or misleading information with the intention to cause harm, to influence people's decision, to cause confusion during critical periods, including during elections. And so it's important for us to understand what the tactics of misinformation and disinformation in elections are. There are a few that I would want to highlight because I think that they'll be very relevant for the viewers and the audience of this podcast. Because the first step is to have awareness. The moment you have the awareness, you're able to understand the tactic, and then that automatically reduces its susceptibility or reduces your susceptibility to that form of information. So voter suppression content. So this is a form of content that is aimed at disenfranchising a targeted group of people. So this could include falsifying the date and the time of the election, or depicting threats of violence in a particular region, or pulling out information about a health emergency. So maybe saying things like there is a communicable disease out there that if you go out, you could get infected. And all of this is really a way to suppress the votes of a targeted group of people. So that's the voter suppression content. We also have a very popular content, which is the us versus them content. So this is a very divisive form of content that plays to our identity. So this could be our identities as a tribe, an ethnic group, a religion, or even class, right? And so what this does is it plays on our existing biases, and also on our sense of identity. So it pitches a group against the other, even though we're all together, really hoping that we're able to make the right decisions and we want the dividends of democracy. But this is a tactic that's often used during elections, often by political actors, to divide the polity and to influence the electoral outcome. There's also the tactic around the delegitimization content. And this is really to cast a doubt. We often see it play out in ways that casts a doubt on the electoral process itself. Unfortunately, the electoral umpire is often the target in this instance, where we're delegitimizing candidates, parties making speculations of foreign interferences. And this is not to discount the fact that there are influence operations often within elections. And some of these influence operations could be external. It could be foreign interests trying to influence the electoral outcome of a country of interest. So that is definitely a possibility. And we've had instances where that has actually happened. But we've also seen the weaponization of that in a way to undermine the integrity of the electoral process itself, or to undermine the objective or the intention of the Electoral Commission, where standard processes are being looked at, weaved into a narrative to delegitimize that process. And this is often a bid to ensure that when there is a candidate who's been declared as the winner of the elections, then there is reason to suspect that that candidate did not actually win the elections. And this often leads to post-election violence. This is really very scary when we see this play out in elections. Another very popular tactic that we see is the unverified declaration of victory. And this happens every election cycle in so many countries that we have monitored. And this is from the players here are the political parties themselves. where the electoral official results are not weighted on. Rather, the political parties have their own tallies going on, and they're putting out on social media all kinds of numbers to basically claim victory of that election. And what it does is it really creates confusion and leads to dissatisfaction when the results are declared by the Electoral Commission. And these also, unfortunately, leads to post-electoral violence. It also leads to divisiveness within the polity. There's a lot of division and also apathy, and people really feeling like they have been robbed of their mandate. And you see a lot of people go to court, and it just takes away the legitimacy of the candidates who have actually won the election. So that is really troubling. But it's important that we're aware that these are some of the common tactics that plays out during election.